Longsword got thrown into the trash can with those videos. Who would have guessed? It's obviously D at the very bottom of D. Lance, well, why would you put it in D tier? I'm not sure if it's S or A. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Bow. I think Bow is a clear winner. Bow got so many things, which makes it even better than it is right now. It gets Wormstake Blast from Gunlance, it gets a sever damage buff, a reward for being precise. It's a clear winner in my opinion. Okay, let's move to Charge Blade. Charge Blade, I'm not sure. It's not D. I wouldn't say it's D. It's either B or C. It's not that great. Like ready stand in sword mode seems to be lacking stuff. It's good for X, because it doesn't care if you're in sword mode or not. It's still a GP. Then there's good for Savage X. Other than that, you don't get any buff. It uses a wire bug. So I'm not sure. The fire ping as well, I'm not sure what to think about it. It could be a good thing. I don't know how it acts in multiplayer. We don't know the KO value. And the fact that you have to switch to X to proc it. I would say it's C, because there is better stuff. But I don't think it's the worst. Moving on to Dual Blades. I think Dual Blades is either B or A. Simply because it gets more stuff. It doesn't get any reduced things. It gets a big damage thingy, which sure uses 2 wire bugs, so you can't really spam it from what we saw in the video. But it seems to be a strong move. It seems to encourage elemental and status dual blades. And you have a different combo, which is a repositioning tool. So I would say dual blades is one of the good ones. It's not the best. I would rank it in A. It's not that bad. Moving on to Greatsword. Greatsword is also a tricky one. Sure, the strong arm stance seems cool. It looks nice. It's a counter. But you already have guard tackle. And you can do guard tackle from the get-go and actually reach 2 charge slash or rage slash. Unlike strong arm chance, where if you do it from the get-go, you get to charge level 3, but only on the very first charge attack. The question is, what if you use strong arm stance with the new combo, which doesn't have charge attacks? What will happen? I wouldn't say it's one of the bad ones. It's still okay. Like the new combo, I think being more elementally focused, I think, would make sense. But usually elemental greatsword is not that great. Even with high elemental motion values, it's not that good. Yeah, you already have something like that, but it looks cool. And the drawback of the guard tackle is that if you get knockback that is too high, you don't get into 2 shot slash, which I don't think it's a thing for strong arm, because you just counter the attack and get to it anyway. But still, it uses a wire bug, unlike guard tackle, and guard tackle literally procs with everything. If you have a light bowgun which uses pierce, stretch, shrapnel, if it hits you while you do guard tackle, you go into 2 shot slash. That's the difference. Sure, it's not charged, but you go into it. And if you saw the little video we made, the little shorts, where Gaudium hits me with the bow, and I repeatedly get the 2 charge slash over and over, back to back. This is very strong in multiplayer. And solo, yeah, sure. Strong arm stance is superior in solo. That's for sure. I would still say Greatsword because it gets a new combo. Hopefully more elemental based, so you have more options. I think it's still A. Moving to Gunlance. I know the Gunlance players don't like it. I can see why. But from the switch skills alone, just based on that video, Gunlance seems to be not bad. Still, there are a lot of questions about the barrage. How does it act with different shelling types? How does it act if you have erupting cannon instead of wormstake cannon? There's a lot of questions to be asked, and we sadly have no answers. But that you have a big burst option now, which makes normal shelling kind of redundant. And the second thing, the erupting cannon, that you can technically play more slaplands now, is also a thing that encourages you to try more builds, to try more weapons, which is also a good thing. And in some matchups, I can imagine that slaplands will be superior. I think Gunlance is not bad. I think it got one of the better ones. So I would rank it B, even though the weapon itself in the game right now lacks heavily in the department of damage. Heavily. It's one of the less hitting weapons in the game. It just doesn't deal enough damage, which is sad. But based on the videos alone, I think it's one of the better ones. We still have to see how it evolves, if they buff Gunlance, if it has now higher motion values, if it gets more shelling type levels. Instead of stopping at level 5, you get to level 8 or even level 9. We don't know yet. I think B is a good thing for Gunlance. Moving to Hammer. Hammer got something from Hunting Horn for whatever reason. And it got a way better stance switch. Hammer is, I think, one of the... It's like power with Charge Blade. I don't know what to think about it. It's not trash, but it's also not the best. I think it's like Charge Blade, to be honest. Like, it has one skill which is good, which is the charge thingy. But then it has something from Hunting Horn, which, okay, it deals damage. Sure, it deals KO. You get a little buff. What about the ticks? It seems to be fixed damage based on the footage we saw. But is this really true? I would still say it's better than Charge Blade. So maybe I would rank it B as well after Gunlance. Yeah. I would say that's a good place for Hammer. It will still be Impact Trader spam, that's for sure. I think that won't change, sadly. But maybe the new stuff, especially the new charging thingy, will be a good refresh, a good change of pace. Pace? I don't know. English not my first language. Moving on to Heavy Bowgun. I think there's not much to say about it. Getting a buff to Pierce is good. We don't know if it also affects Elemental Pierce, but I think it does since it affects Violent Snipe as well. So I think getting a little bit love for Pierce, which is not really used right now, is good. And the Crouching Shot is obviously way better than Charging Shot. There's still a lot of questions. Ammo count. How does the overheating work? What is the cooldown if you overheat? All that stuff. I think Heavy Bowgun is one of the better ones, for sure. Not as good as Dual Blades, but maybe a little bit better than Great Sword. Maybe. Hunting Horn. I have to put Hunting Horn in D. For me personally, Hunting Horn didn't get anything. It seems like Hunting Horn just got things that could be normally in the game already. Sure, it gets a double hit, like an additional hit thingy, but we didn't see any numbers. We didn't see how much KO it really deals. And Hunting Horn being a weapon designed to getting KOs, having one of the worst KO build-ups in the game is super weird. So I think that switch skill, that Silkbind move, should have been in the game from the very beginning. The changing of the nodes, from what we saw in the trailer, is... Yeah, it's a neutral thingy. It's kind of obvious with a new expansion. We get new Hunting Horns, they have different buffs. They behave differently, that kind of thing. So maybe it was obvious, but the new combo also seems like it could be in the game from the beginning. It's just the combo that basically repositions yourself. It's not that big of a deal. You can compare it with Dual Blades, but Dual Blades actually hits while it does it. And we don't know if both of them have iframes or hyper armor, but still Hunting Horn seems to fall off, for me at least. Alright, moving on to Glaive. I think Glaive is one of the better ones as well. Having a good burst move like Hammer with the Kinsect throw is a good thing. Having a different move for Aerial is also not bad, but I wish it could be a little bit better, because if you get Red, you don't get any more extract out of it. That's a little bit weird. I think overall, it's also B. It's not too bad, it's also not the best, and there are too many questions right now. What about Kinsect type? Does it affect how the Kinsect throw works? If you hit the head with a blunt Kinsect, does it deal a lot of KO? What about the dust stuff? How does it affect the power of the Kinsect and the speed? If you have a slower Kinsect, will it travel slow? Too many questions, or we don't have the answer to. It seems to be a good gap closer. Sadly, you will lose all your extracts. That's sad. But it could be worse, it could be better, so it's in the middle. Let's keep it that. Light Bowgun, that's a clear S. 100%, no questions asked. You know it, I know it, everybody knows it. Having a counter which comes out fast, like World, even better than World, because you don't have that much recoil anymore. And having a scope, which is not really a scope, it's just a passive thing, you don't even have to put it on, you can just have it from the very beginning. And a 30% buff to all your ammos, well, not all, certain types are excluded obviously, but 30% is a lot. And we already saw it in the trailer. Going from 87 to 113, which I think is without buffs, because I don't think the people making the trailer buff themselves when they do that. So that's a big thing. Nobody cares about the crit distance or the recoil. There are ways to reduce it. I think Light Bowgun is also one of the big winners in this showcase. Not as good as Bow, but still one of the better ones. One of the best. Going to Switch Axe. Switch Axe is a clear A. I'm not sure if it's better than Heavy Bowgun or not. I would say yes. You get way more utility. Not only do you get a counter, but that counter also amps your sword fully. It deals a lot of damage based on the hit lag we saw. And the second switch skill move is... It seems very interesting that the sword attack deals more damage. The question is, can you remain in that sword mode or not? And I think Switch Axe is one of the better ones. That's for sure. This counter alone, which amps up your sword, you can just block a roar, you can counter it, you deal a lot of damage, and you instantly get your sword amped. That's one of the best things Switch Axe could ever get, at least in my opinion. Not the best, like the second switch skill, it's a little bit weird that it gets a different transforming thingy, but the counter alone pulls it up to A. Sword and Shield, that's a C for me. Sure, you get Destroyer Oil, but what does it do actually? It seems like to be just a part back multiplier, you don't get any damage buff. You just flinch the monster more. There is damage missing. And the second combo it gets is weird. You already have a Shield Bash combo, which deals a lot of damage and KO, doesn't consume sharpness. And you have an Elemental combo, which is good for elemental weapons. So why do you get a new combo? What's the purpose of that new combo? That's the question. Usually what you see in speedruns is the Shield Bash combo. You see the T-Rex or the Rampage SNS, they have a really tiny little PP of white, and because the Shield Bash doesn't consume sharpness, you remain in white. But with this new combo you don't have any shield attacks, so you will drop in sharpness pretty quickly, which is kind of meh. And it doesn't seem to have like something else going for it. The shield combo has the KO, the elemental combo has, well, the elemental motion value. What does the new combo have? We don't know. And as long as we don't know, it's a C for me. As I said, the Destroyer Oil is not... It's too less. It's only a part break multiplier for a wire bug. Maybe there is now an item where you can buff the sword. SNS, it seems... It's not better than Charge Blade. Charge Blade still gets a firing pin, which deals more KO, it seems like. And the ready stance, which you can use out of the X mode, without getting rid of Savage X. You still keep it. I think that are things that are going for CB. It's still underwhelming what they showed or how they showed it, but I think SNS is still a little bit worse than that. Longsword. I'm not sure if it's S or A. Like at the bottom of S or at the top of A. Just because the infinite gauge is not that big of a buff. Sure, it seems to be, oh, Longsword has now infinite gauge. Well, what would you use it for? Foresight Slash? That's pretty much everything. Why would you level up normally if you can just use ISS and do a normal combo once? So you don't need infinite gauge. You don't need it. And the only thing is the Harvest Moon, the double ticks. That's a thing we have to look into. Sure, the initial damage of the ISS, the initial ticks, they got nerfed. The motion value is set down. But the ticks themselves made up for it. And we have no idea how it will perform in multiplayer. Do other longsword players get the same buff if they are in the area? If 4 people trigger it, how will it behave? What will happen? So Harvest Moon alone doesn't make it S. Doesn't make it one of the best skills. But then we have the Sacred Sheath, which is also... We don't have enough information about it. Sure, it's like an auto counter. You fend off an attack when you get hit while you do the sheath. We don't know how it looks like. We don't know the damage. We don't know if it's an actual counter or if it's just hyper armor and you fend off the attack. We don't see it. And other than that, I still don't know how the charge works. Does it really work with your gauge level? So if you're not in red, you cannot charge all the way? Or can you charge all the way anyway? It has a high wind up. Like the sheath is pretty slow if quick sheath does anything for it. So I wouldn't say Longsword is S. Longsword may be at the top of A, sure. But we have not enough information about it. The only information we have is ISS got nerfed. The ticks deal less damage now. That's what we know. But other than that, we don't know if the ticks have a motion value or if the ticks are percentage from the initial hits. I think it's more motion value thingy. And the Sacred Sheath, we don't know punishing draw, critical draw, quick sheath. We don't know if all those things apply. We don't know how the counter works. It's just not enough information to make a certain evaluation of this video. It's just not possible. And now for the last thing, Lance. Well, who would have guessed? It's obviously D at the very bottom of D. Lance got really cocked. Lance got thrown into the trash can with those videos. Showing two skills that are completely out of the ordinary for Lance. Having Skyward Thrust, which is basically descending thrust from Insect Glaive for Lance. You don't use the shield at all. There is no KO, there's no blocking frames, there's pretty much nothing. If you get hit when you do that, you lose your wire box. That's it. You don't get any damage increase. Oh yeah, sure, you get ticks when you crash down. But how much damage does it deal? We don't know. And the shield tackle, sure, it covers less distance. It seems to be a counter in some way. You have those blue flames around it. But why? They show in the same scene. When they show the shield tackle, they show the guard advance. Why not just use the guard advance? It gives you natural guard, and you have two options to get out of there. Three actually. You can do the shield bash, you can do the triple hit thingy, or you can backstab out of it. I'm just not sure why they would show both of those in the same thing. I think Lance got really the worst end of the stick right here. But that's it. That's the tier list I would make to rank every weapon based on the trailers. I think bow and light bowgun got the best things, clearly. Longsword, sure, it's good, it seems good, but we don't have enough information. Dual blades look really good, I really like that. Same as switch axe, it looks really good. Heavy bowgun, still there are questions to be answered. What about the ammo count? What about the cooldown of the overheating? We don't know anything. Greatsword, same thing. The new combo, why would you use that? Is it more elemental focused? Questions, we don't have the answer for it. Gunlance, hammer and insect glaive are like in a kind of discord. They look cool. They look good, but one of the switch skills is a little bit weird. That's for this. Chargeblade and SNS I think are okay-ish. Well, not really, they are not okay. It's weird. It's a weird showcase for both of them. Especially for SNS. You get an oil that doesn't really do anything, and you get a combo that doesn't really do anything. And then Hunting Horn and Lance. Lance is obvious. Why do you have a shield anymore? What's the point? Why does Lance have a shield? You don't use it. In fact, even building guard if you play, for example, Anchorate is bad, because your damage buff you get is worse if you play guard. You want the knockback. It's just, I think Lance and Rise in general is weird. It's a really weird concept to play Lance without actually guarding. And Hunting Horn, it's the same thing. Those switch skills that don't really make me hyped to play that weapon. Alright, I think that sums up the stream pretty good. The tier list right there. I hope you have a nice day, and I will see you next time. Bye bye!